One.
Hi, welcome to the Hey Not the Face podcast. I have a very special guest today, Lou DiBella. I guess if you're no boxing, I don't really need to introduce him at all. But since a large portion of our audience is the MMA market, I should give a quick rundown. Lou is here to talk about all things boxing, especially related to the new Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act that's been introduced. I want to just go over the state of boxing with him and what the impact of this bill could be. And Lou's career is someone that was an executive at HBO Sports all through the 90s during, I guess, would be the golden age of HBO boxing and sports. He also is a promoter from Lou DiBella Entertainment and worked on numerous documentaries, movies, and stuff about boxing. So he has covered the gamut from promoter to executive in broadcasting to auxiliary forces in boxing. And that's why he's here. Welcome, Lou.
Good to be with you.
Thank you, sir. It's good to get you here. It's been a journey, so we have you.
Well, the third time's the charm. We were scheduled
yes,
the third
yes.
time's the charm.
Hopefully, this is more relaxing and entertaining than it was with you on Ariel Hawani's show yesterday.
I got to tell you, that was relaxing and entertaining for me. That's my personality. I enjoyed that hour actually. I actually had that. Did you watch it?
I did watch it. Well, I want to make sure I didn't ask the same questions.
What did you think?
I thought it was entertaining. I thought you're a little riled up at times, but it's entertaining.
The purpose of it is to be entertaining, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no, that's not our purpose. That's the last thing we want to be is entertaining over on this network. That's what, yeah, we're not in the entertainment business at all. I think our ratings kind of indicate that. So,
no, look, you're entertaining, and there are people who watch you, and to them, you're entertaining. So let's entertain them right now.
Yes, let's do that. Okay, yeah. So I wanted to have you on because I've been covering the new proposed bill as well as the previous Ali Act for some time. And
it's almost not worth this much effort by you. It's almost not worth all the conversation, bro.
It kind of is not. I agree.
I truly believed in it. There's a copy of the Ali Act signed by, that John McCain sent me that's hanging in my office. Like I worked on that with Pat English and other people in boxing, assisted McCain and his chief of staff back then in the 90s writing the Ali Act. And McCain was also an advocate of a national commission, which really should have happened because there's nobody running boxing. But the government can't run itself. So how the fuck are they going to run a national commission? So there is no national commission, right? But, the Ali Act, I think it's a fait accompli right now. It's going to be, this new act is going to pass. You're an MMA guy, right? You're primarily an MMA guy.
Well, primary coverage, but I was a boxing guy longer.
But just give you, so here's a little, why in general doesn't the Muhammad Ali Act apply to all fighters of every discipline that are fighting on television for promoters or promotions? Like, why was the Ali Act only centered on boxing? Why has the Ali Act never applied to MMA?
Well, the answer given usually is because people will say because John McCain didn't like mixed martial arts at the time and left off, at least that's Pat English's, that he left off he wanted not to include mixed martial arts because he just didn't think it was a legitimate sport. I think it's more likely because he focused on boxing.
No, I think Pat was initially correct. I think you're also somewhat correct. He was focused on boxing, which was remember, this was the 90s. You said it yourself. This was the heyday of HBO Sports. This was probably the peak of boxing since the Ali era on ABC. It was the 90s on HBO. And he was focused on boxing. It was fledgling MMA. It was also in vogue for a lot of people that were hipsters in boxing and boxing purists and boxing people to shit all over MMA. I was one of them. I didn't appreciate it as a discipline. I personally think my interview with Joe Rogan, no one won. I thought he sounded like a fucking horse's ass also.
I agree.
I conceded long after that interview that I wasn't accurate. And I'm actually, I wouldn't say I'm an MMA fan because I don't know enough to be a fan. But then again, most boxing fans don't know enough to be fans. But I do follow MMA now, and I appreciate it as a discipline, and I understand what I didn't understand when I did the Rogan interview. But Rogan, if you'll go back, watch the interview, the shit Rogan said was all wrong, too.
Yeah, no,
anyway,
I agree with you.
Go back to the Ali Act. What do you want to know specifically about the Ali Act?
Well, I mean, okay,
questions, bro.
I'm going to say this, first of all. The Ali Act, I think what happened, though, more than that they ignored it and didn't include MMA fighters in the bill, because it was an underground sport at the time, is the athletic commissions who had
The
control over
yeah.
both sports. They determined that it does not apply.
Okay, no one I know in the press, no podcast guy, no guy that wants to talk about the Ali Act, nobody that wants to talk about boxing regulation, no one wants to discuss how to fix boxing, ever goes and reads the State Athletic Commission rules. Because if you read them, you realize they're antiquated and were written basically at the dawn of television. They were written at a time, frankly, where TV money wasn't even the money in combat sports. The money was the gate, the live venue. Like, they were ancient and they weren't ever properly revised. There's lawlessness. There's no governance of the sport of boxing. And that's part of the problem. McCain helped get an act enacted that was a great deterrent. The act is a deterrent. It's all it is, because no one's fucking enforcing it. No one's ever enforced it. Only attorneys, very smart ones, that have had clients who are boxers that had enough money to pay the attorney, use the Ali Act as in a civil manner, using the Ali Act to go after violations of the Ali Act. But in terms of anyone ever being called to task by a governmental entity for a violation of the Ali Act, I've never seen it happen.
Okay, I'm gonna say one thing that I am probably one of the few people that has read every congressional report, record, meeting, hearing from 1960, the Keefe officer meetings in the antitrust committee, all the way through the Professional Boxing Amendment Act. I have thousands of freaking pages.
Wow.
Blew my mind.
Wow.
So you made several appearances.
Are you an attorney, by the way, by training or anything?
No, not. I added television shows. I'm
okay,
just a Yahoo.
Is this is something that really fascinates you?
I've just always been fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by combat,
right,
combat
so you know
sports and labor law.
When I say that it's basically lawless, even though there's a lot of laws.
Yeah, no, it is. I 100% agree. When people say the Ali Act, well, two things. They're right on both ends. One, the Ali Act doesn't work because no enforcement mechanism was put in place because the attorney generals do not they ignore it completely.
Right.
Yeah, but what does work, speaking to Pat English and Kurt Emhoff and numerous people.
And by the way, two of the more knowledgeable people on the subject, right?
The right of private action does work, and the one that they note that works the most is not the compensation part that everybody brings up. That the revealing of compensation, disclosure of compensation by the promoter is the one everybody brings up as the important part. The one most cite as the most important feature of the Ali Act was the ban on coercive contracts. And because that's the one they say before the Don King era of the 90s. Every promoter would require that you sign options with them, even on mandatories.
But I want to be honest with you, that's also somewhat bullshit. Because right now, you can, I don't do it, but there are a bunch of promoters that work in one state that contracts are in another state. There are different state regulations. There are certain states that you have to only have 3 years in an initial term of a promotional contract, like New York, which is insane because you are losing money for probably 3 to 5 years with a young fighter if you're developing them. Mm-hmm. So there are other states you can go and do a contract out of Oklahoma and have a 7-year contract with before you have to extend it. I mean, there's a way. When I say there's lawlessness, you have to believe me. Pat's right about a lot of this stuff, but they're deterrents. There's certain benchmarks. They give certain right. Like, you can't sign a one-bout contract now. He's right. And be bound the way you could have been bound before the Ali Act, right? But there are a lot of people, there's a lot of ways to skirt the Ali Act, and Pat knows that damn well too. However, I'm with Pat 100%. I don't want to see this new act pass, but it's passed already. It's done. Yeah. It's fait accompli. There's no sense to go to stupid. I'm not going to a kangaroo court thing with a bunch of fucking clowns. The state commissioners that want to get the job that Mark Ratner has in UFC, they want the same job in boxing with TKO. I'm not going to go listen to that shit or go participate in trying to get a bill that you see the people that are coming on now. It's like it's completely bipartisan. It's going to pass almost unanimously, and they're all too stupid to understand that it completely guts all the good stuff from the first act. Yeah, the first act's there. It just means nothing anymore. So it is, but you know what, man? It is what it is. It's not worth having a multi-hour debate about this.
No, we're not. Forget. We're not going to get in the whole debate of that. But I want to get a couple things. One is we know, the Ali Act wasn't perfect, but I guess you blame the stakeholders of boxing for getting us to the state. What do you think each individual stakeholder did wrong to get us where we are? Because
What
to me,
when you say stakeholder, who are you
okay,
talking
well, let
about?
me say this. One is stakeholders are the promoters, the sanctioning organizations,
Dude,
the
here's
boxers,
what did they
the
do
athletic
wrong? Okay,
commissions.
okay. When you
But let
start
me
with
let
this,
me just
okay,
kind of
stop.
okay.
You're an MMA fan primarily, but are you really a boxing fan? Like, do
Oh
you?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
I'm
so
since
then,
'87.
can
No,
you
before
name?
then, and
All right, explain to me.
I was always more of a bigger boxing
Explain
fan than
to
MMA
me
fan.
why there are 16 weight classes, 4 organizations giving out champions in each weight class, interim champions of most of those organizations. While there, I thought interim meant there is no regular champion, so there's someone in the interim, and when the regular champion gets back, they fight. But there are interim champions who have interim mandatories, and there are regular champions, and there are super champions to whom no rules apply.
Yeah.
There are so many champions, no one knows who the fuck they are. Most of the boxing quote unquote stars could walk through Times Square at noon today, and no one would know who they are, including Javante Davis, and who's a star, you know. But it doesn't matter because we're not fighters don't fight regularly. They're not pop culture figures any longer. They're not on radio in non-boxing situations with 11 people watching. They're not on regular TV shows. They're not, Mike Tyson is still getting into hip hop songs, lyrics, but most of the new guys aren't. They're not, like, no one's talking about boxing at a water cooler. Most people don't even know what DAZN is. And DAZN is the biggest platform for boxing in the United States. Do I need to fucking continue? You
Well,
want more problems? Excuse me. There was a fight last weekend, a title fight, where a guy won the fight, losing 8 out of 10 rounds, or losing 8 rounds.
Yeah, I saw. I missed that fight. I had
It was like an elimination bout of some kind.
Yeah. It was. I heard it was a terrible decision. But okay, I'm going to answer that really quick.
Yeah.
Why we have that, and you tell me if I'm wrong. I think it goes back originally to the Duva versus WBA case when the American Athletic Commissions got out of the sanctioning organizations, opening the floodgates for even more sanctioning organizations.
Okay, but dude, the sanctioning organizations couldn't exist if not for the promoters and fighters paying them. Like,
Yeah.
why did we allow 4 organizations to get a lot of people rich? Why did we allow corrupt judging and all this bullshit? 85 different ways of legal graft. Why did we allow all that shit? It was our sport. Like, I mean, stop being stupid. Like, you got to think through this. Like,
well, here,
why? Because it was lawless. Because there was never cooperation. It was always Dodge City. It was always every man for himself. That's why. And
no, that's 100%.
Guess what? They're all coming down.
Yeah.
They're all coming down. They're all going to come down. Every one of the big promotional companies won't exist in 10 years. None of them will exist unless they completely change their form or their business model. They're all going out of business.
I agree. I mean, but that's the part everybody seems to ignore when I bring up, is I'm like, I don't think they understand that not only have they made a house of cards that's ready to fall at this, they made a house out of straw and the flames coming, but they also don't understand the implications of changing the Alley Act and what TKO can do because of the entity.
You know this because you've thought through this. And by the way, you can't really educate people that don't want to be educated. So that's why this is too intelligent a conversation for most of the people that would view. Look, I got to be honest, though. I think the way that Helwani and I talked yesterday, I was reading comments on it, and it got through to people because it was real talk. Like, and frankly, Ariel's a great interviewer, and he keeps his cool, quote unquote. But like, when you press him, you could actually have a meaningful back and forth. And I thought that, like, maybe I got through to some people about the women's boxing 3-minute round stuff. I don't know. I hope so. And some other topics we discussed. And also, I'm not looking to boxing for a living anymore. Yeah. And I've accomplished everything I want to accomplish and need to accomplish in my life. I'm not looking to shine Turkey's sandals. That will never happen. I'm not calling Turkey His Excellency. I never have. I never will. So I mean, I'm at peace, man. I'm running 2 baseball teams. I'm building a $130 million stadium in Richmond, Virginia. I'm working on a bunch of other businesses, and I'm getting to speak my piece with someone like you, with someone like Ariel, with other guys I respect or think are decent people that I don't mind talking to. Oh. And I care about boxing. I still want to have a voice, but dude, I'm not willing to speak anything but completely, like, transparently and openly about what I really feel. And I
Okay.
think boxing, as we knew it, as like the era of Hagler, Hearns, and Duran and Leonard, the four belt system, the four organizational system, the lack of any oversight, the lack of any administration and governance of the sport, the lack of any self-governance of the sport, the attempt of a bunch of little promoters with very little vision to try to become their own UFCs when it was impossible, the lack of working together, fighters not being forced to make the best fights, ratings that meant nothing, decisions that were rigged. What the fuck did people expect? That we were going to be in great shape in 2025? So
Yeah.
we're not. And now it's a reset time. It's a time of transition. Who's going to survive? It's going to be fun. I'm going to survive partially because I started getting myself out of the traditional promotional business over the course of the last 5 years, understanding how the market was changing. Opening, like I've over the last 10 years, I've survived because I can work with everybody. So I will work with everybody. So I've been able to get opportunities. When I wasn't doing my own shows, I was able to get opportunities for my fighters by utilizing relationships, being willing to work with every platform. Right now, the biggest platform in boxing is the Zone. Most of your friends and neighbors don't know what the fuck it is.
Yeah, no one knows what that is.
Okay, well,
That's
dude, that's the home of boxing right now.
yeah, I know. I
And
listen.
by the way, can it only get better? Is it going to be any worse? They're going to have Paramount. They're going to have CBS. I mean, right now, the Ali Act should be this new Ali Act. I love Lani Alia, and she was always been very kind to me, and I believe her support, honestly, is honest. I don't believe she would give her support. I don't believe they gave her a bag of cash for her support. I think she probably thinks the boxing needs some kind of oversight and governance. At least UFC runs their own fucking business, right? So I'm not like, but I don't think this act should be called the Ali Act. It's not an Ali Act. It's a TKO Act. And what it's designed to do is to allow the UFC business model to translate into boxing. It's designed to create a red carpet for them into boxing. It was written by their lobbyists and lawyers. It is what it is. I am not going to lose sleep over it. I'm not going to be angry over it. It guts what McCain and Pat English and I and a bunch of other people with good intentions tried to do in the 90s. However, it is what it is. And you know what? I know how we got here. And and it takes, maybe the rest of the industry should do a little bit of self-reflection on how we got here, which is why I said yesterday on Hawani's show, I'll repeat it to you. I think Eddie Hearn's incredibly talented. I think he could create something that could be a secondary competitor to what TKO is going to do. I do. But if he believes doubling down on the old system, on the four organizational system, the 16 weight class system, the interim champions, regular champions, super champions system, judges paid by, the co-opted by ratings organizations, paid by promoters, the system all has to change. And at least what TKO is doing right now, and even if it means the Ali Act getting knocked out of commission, which bothers me, even if that happens, it's going to force a reset in the industry. Maybe multiple resets. Maybe there'll be a UFC model of boxing and another model of boxing. I don't know, but I'll tell you this. What was going on the last couple of decades hasn't worked. And boxing's only become less relevant. And boxing's only become less pop culture. And it's only gotten smaller. And honestly, it's opened the door for a lot of shit that's fine. If you like influencer boxing, if you like Jake Paul, I'm not going to hate you. If your kid wants to go see him fight Mike Tyson at 75 years old, I don't give a fuck. Let your kid watch it. I watched it. Frankly, it was it was enough of a curiosity that I watched it. It was, by the way, it doesn't hurt anyone when you put it on Netflix and everyone has Netflix already. So, but it opened the door for a whole world of faux boxing. I'll call it faux boxing, right? But if we had our shit together, there would be no MVP and Jake Paul right now doing what they're doing. And I'm not hating them for doing it. He found the niche. He's doing it very effectively. He's not. I mean, the fact he's been able to make himself a boxing star with completely pedestrian, non-existent skills is a tribute to him as a promoter and a celebrity, right? And I can't hate on what he's doing, but we opened the door for that. You think You think Turkey couldn't walk into any other major sport and just take it over in a matter of months, the way he jumped into boxing and was
Well, but everybody's been saying for several years now, I don't know how, but let's say close to a decade, because I remember talking to you close to a decade about the Ali Act and everything back then. But everybody's been saying for years now that boxing's ripe for a takeover, the way it's shrinking and being moved off the
yeah,
network
and
TV and
now it's
stuff.
happening, right?
Yeah. And now it's even worse than it was
No,
10
no,
years, much
no, it's
worse.
happening now. You see,
Yeah,
you have
yes.
to bottom out, and I've been prognosticating it for 10 years. And that's the reason why so many of your cohorts and other people that have podcasts or whatever that have followed the sport for a long time, like Ariel, want to talk to me partially because I did call a lot of this. I did see a lot of this coming. Why? I watched the sport disintegrating. And as I watch, whenever something gets to a point, you come to a point that you create great opportunity for people. And now the people, it's not just Nick Khan and Dana White, it's the people they work for who own their company. It's the Ari Emanuels, Endeavor, Silver Lake. It's the people on that who say, wow, you know what, man, we own wrestling, basically. Yeah, there are some good competitors, but they're secondary or tertiary. We own MMA, right? Maybe we could own boxing, and maybe we could do it with Turkey's money.
No,
Or more accurately, maybe we could do it with the Saudi government's money. So right now, the die is sort of cast. It's a matter of seeing what happens in the next 3 to 7 years.
Well, I'm going to give you a quote that Ari Emanuel supposedly said that I was told to me on hearsay that back in when they were going to launch Zuffa Boxing originally, and this paraphrasing what I was told, that he said the problem with boxing is it's 70-30 for the boxers, and we need it to be 70-30 for us.
No, but it doesn't make a difference. It's going to be, but it's going to take a very long time. And here's the other problem. Turkey is grossly overpaying clowns that can't sell out. You see, if you're going to overpay, you can't really overpay Canelo that much because Canelo could do what the fuck he wants. You can overpay a Crawford based upon the gate he makes or brings in. But frankly, Crawford and Canelo was a smart move. You know, it was the number one fighter in the sport against the number one attraction in the sport, who used to be the number one fighter in the sport, right? You can make certain events that transcend and that that type of an event gets attention of a Netflix. Netflix put that on the same way they put on Tyson but very few fights we can make do that. Very few. We've made very few stars. We've created the opportunity for a TKO to come in with good television deals, develop their own talent, create their own star. The rub is Turkey overpaying people and don't sell by vast percentages of what they're really worth at the same time that he is the money behind TKO's effort to bring things down to a level where it's more of a rational business.
Well, isn't the concern though that TKO they partnered with TKO because the Saudis want to turn this into a long-term profitable business, and that TKO is basically going to take the blueprint of what they did with the UFC, which is the blueprint that the IBC of New York did basically, which is to take over. Maybe Turkey pays the top guys too much now, but eventually, if they're all locked in,
but I said this 100 times, and this is the point you're missing. See, and I'm with you. I'm with Kurt Emhoff. I'm with Pat English, but you're not business guys in boxing. You don't understand the business the way I understand the business. Even the lawyers who believe they do, you sort of don't. Okay. There's a lot more expense that goes in. It's not just the split of revenue on an event. You're running a promotion. You're running a business. You're losing money here, there, wherever, trying to build stuff. There are lost leaders. It's not like it's naive to think it's 70-30 one way to 70-30 the other way. It's not. Okay? Here's the other thing, and I've said it a million times. The poorest, there is no middle class in boxing. It's the richest of the rich. I'm already. Look. I'm an affluent guy. I don't like. I'm not a mega rich. I'm an affluent guy. At the same time, look at what's happening with the billionaires getting richer and richer. The richest getting richer and richer. I don't like to see that shit. I don't like to see it in boxing. I don't like to see it in the real world. I think that but what's starting to happen, It's not. You also have to look realistically at a business model, at a business. Most promoters have gone out of business on their own. It hasn't been profitable. Very few have had exclusive deals. It's only the billions of dollars of losses in recent years that have kept Oscar and Eddie and Frank and even Bob. But like Bob had his ESPN deal. The ESPN deal's gone. Bob, top ranked, the most iconic name in boxing promotion in the United States, has no television dates, has no TV deal right now. Like, look at where we are, right? We put ourselves here. We put ourselves here.
Yes, that's true. But okay, but two things. One is
the poor. There's no middle class in boxing. At least when Zuffa takes it over, and I don't mean take. I don't think they can take it over as easily as they think. I think we agree on that, right? That they're not going to be able to take it over quite as easily as you think.
You know what? I don't know anymore because boxing has put themselves in such a ghetto.
Because Zuffa's going to be more focused on North America anyway. You know, they'll spread around the world, but like they're not going to be able to take over Great Britain boxing.
Yeah, yeah, right.
They're not going to be able to take over. They're not going to want to take it over in Eastern Europe, Kazakhstan, Georgia. They don't give a fuck about going there. They'll pull fighters out of there who will fight for 15 grand.
Yeah,
they're not going to go there, right? So they'll have competition, right? But maybe the average fighter, the poor bastard that's 15-5 or 18-5, but a real pro boxer that right now is living on the poverty line. Some of them doing street shit just because they have to pay their rent. Literally, some of them, you know, like fighters a lot of our fighters living below the poverty line. Like there is at least a middle class in UFC.
Well, that's UFC, but UFC is only 3% of all fights in MMA.
Okay, but
that's where people look. I took all the reported payouts aren't accurate, but you get down far enough in reported payouts, they generally are accurate.
With all due respect, dude, all the money in MMA is UFC. I mean, there's the tiny promotion here. There's a bullshit amateur UFC here. There are motherfuckers in their backyard charging ticket prices to kick each other in the face. There's you're right, but when you look at MMA worldwide, what is MMA perceived to be? It is UFC. Right?
Exactly.
Their goal is to make that happen with TKO. Will it be so easy? No. Will it be overnight? No. UFC wasn't overnight, man. Took a very fucking long time, right?
The path, I'd say, for UFC was easier, though. There wasn't
much easier. But by the way, it's not like there's a wonderful amount of great competition for TKO right now.
No, that's why I think it's.
Would you trust any of the? You follow it, but you're a fan. You say. You tell me who are the old guard that's creative enough to show you over the last 30 years or 40 years or 20 years or 10 years that they're capable of doing something that would take over the sport.
Well, I think Heyman made an attempt, but I don't know where he's at now.
No, he made an attempt and it failed. I love that. Well, did he fail? He's still in business. He still has to deal with Amazon. Al's a survivor. Al's a very smart guy. I mean, but was he able to take it over? He failed. You know, Eddie Hearn came to America with $1 gazillion of DAZN's money, and they lost $1 gazillion of DAZN's money. They never built the star. By the way, is that really on Eddie? No, it's on the whole DAZN lack of vision. Yeah. You know, and the whole plan didn't work. You're not going to take boxing, which is a struggling sport, and make it a locomotive for a streaming service.
Well, isn't it? I mean, to me, isn't the risk though? Because I know boxing, and I've had. You can go back. I did podcasts with Kurt Emhoff years ago where we talked about the problems with boxing, and I always think it's mostly the sanctioning organizations more than anybody else. They're the number one fucking problem. But
by the way, then you have to agree with me here, right?
Yeah.
Like their assholes are rotating right now. Like they
I don't think they even understand what the threat that's coming to them.
No, I think a few of them do, and I hope. I'm going to say this publicly, and I've said it privately to the people I'm talking about. I hope some of the I don't see. I have love for Mauricio. His father was a dear friend of mine. But his father and I, we butted heads all the time, the same way I butted heads over the years with Mauricio. And I always criticized his organization every time there was anything to when I felt there was something to criticize. I went to him and I complained. And I complained about the whole system, and he knew how I felt. But I loved boxing, and he loved boxing, and I really felt from his father love, like a friendship, right? And I feel the same thing for Mauricio. But Mauricio and the BC, they're never going to cede the green belt and the BC and what it means and whatever. There'll always be a BC, and they'll find a universe somewhere in the world to keep the BC happening. But it's going to be different, right? I'm not even going to get into the WBA, and I'm not saying they're bad. The WBA is all bad people, but the WBA, man, the shit they do is so crazy. I can't even address them. So I'm putting them over on the side, right? I hope the IBF and the WBO get together. I hope they consider they're both in America, Puerto Rico and New Jersey. Fewer sanctioning organizations would be a great power. I think some continuity to the old way. I think the IBF and the BO have conducted themselves with honor. I'll note that neither one of them has taken money from the Saudis.
Yeah.
I'll just make that point.
Yeah.
I think they've conducted themselves. I don't agree with everything they've done, but I hope that what's left of the old school industry needs to start making changes. And I'm saying this as someone that doesn't want really to be involved. I want to observe. I will. I may mess around here and there in boxing, but my days of waking up and my day is determined about by how I feel about boxing. Those days are gone. They're done. They're gone. So right now, I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking more about the Richmond Flying Squirrels and Montgomery Biscuits and baseball than I am about the future of boxing. Right? I think I've given my 36 fucking years to boxing. Right? Now I love boxing, but I'm going to sit back and watch how this develops because boxing's a hot fucking mess right now.
Well, that's what's happening outside the ring is probably the most entertaining part of boxing right now, but the which is sad. But the sanction, I'm not sure they're taking it serious because the big complaint is for all the sanction orders is your rankings suck. You don't hold guys to the rules, your own rules and guidelines of how they're supposed to defend the titles. You print tons of belts. And now everybody's criticizing when there's this new entity moving in.
Do you know what happened? Like you did a podcast once with Kurt Emhoff, who was a lawyer. Kurt's an old friend of mine. I respect Kurt a lot. He's a smart guy. You did a podcast with Kurt, who's a lawyer. Are you aware the case where Povetkin was sued by myself and Deontay Wilder? I lost $450,000 in legal fees. Won a fucking case, only to have the judge throw the case out of court after we won. The jury, we won a jury verdict. We won the case. The judge threw it out of court. You know why he threw it out of court? The judge read WBC rules and determined there basically are no rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a rule in the WBC rules that says you can ignore everything else here if we feel like ignoring it. And it basically was an all-encompassing out. And it exists in most of these organizations. The IBF, because they got put out of business by the federal district court in New Jersey, at one point, to get put under receivership, they have always now operated at least with an understand. That's one of the reasons you've gotten some bad mandatories and stuff also. Maybe they didn't do their homework well enough, but they did operate within their rules. And the WBO, I've had problems with the BO, like I did with all the organizations over years, but Paco Valcarcel, who was an attorney, and Gustavo Olivieri, who's now his successor, is also an attorney. I really like Gustavo a lot. I think he's a very thoughtful. He thinks through stuff. He cares about the appearances of decision making. He cares about some transparency in decision making. I think if the IBF and the BO got together, if these organizations, if honestly, if the BCBO and IBF created one sanctioning organization with trying to adjust. Really look at things with an eye to why do we have the problems we do in boxing and how can we fix them, trying to create a real governance. Maybe something could change in the future. Maybe it'd be incentive for other players to compete with TKO, right? But right now, TKO seems to have they're on a big giant friggin' jet. They got the president administration of the United States government on the jet with them. They got laws changing to put out a red carpet on the runway. They're backed by a limitless bank account in Saudi Arabia. They have a lot of advantages right now, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be very hard to compete with them.
I want to talk about those sanction organizations. What do you think there's a chance like the IBF and then at least a few of them could say, you know what, why don't on our own we follow the recommendations that were given by the General Accounting Office and the Associate Attorney Generals and the Professional Boxing Amendment Act reports about how we could, what needs to be done after that?
That's not happening now at any point in time. It's never happened before. They're as lawless as the rest of the business. The question would become, could some of those good people that I just mentioned, and by the way, organization's sort of an important thing, and and a network around the world, the people watching boxing around the world that they provide, it could be a great resource. If they got their shit together, yeah, maybe they could be something really good. But right now, they have never gotten their shit together, and they don't deserve to exist in their present form. They don't. They don't deserve to exist in their present form. And Gustavo is my friend, and Daryl Peoples is my friend. I mean, my friend. I mean, and Mauricio is my friend, and I have said those things to them. The things I'm saying to you right now, I have said to them, not out of hatred, out of a love for boxing and understanding where things are going.
Okay, no, isn't there a threat right now? Because we know boxing has a problem, but MMA has a problem too in the monopoly aspect because the UFC just settled for 375 million and multiple other antitrust lawsuits.
Look,
And
and I'm guessing UFC has a lot of lawyers around them and very tight contracts, and they'll amend their ways to a degree so that they're not under particular scrutiny. I think right now, under the present administration, they have very little to
I don't
worry
think they have
about.
any
I don't
concerns.
think they have any concerns. I think they have no concerns if there's a GOP repeat in 3 years. I don't think they will not have concerns for the next 4 years. They certainly have no concerns for an extended period of time. And frankly, let me ask you a real question. With everything going on in the world in this fucking country right now, you think anyone's micromanaging combat sports from a governmental perspective?
No,
So,
that's why it's perfect timing.
well, exactly, dude, and that's why I'm not going to sit here and lose sleep over it, like I told you about 30
No,
minutes ago.
yeah, but okay, but here I'm gonna quote you from the antitrust deposition because this is the part I think.
And I'm sure I haven't contradicted myself,
Yeah, well,
but
sure.
go ahead, quote me,
Yeah.
please.
No. But okay, talking about what happens if a promoter got control over titles, right? If this is a quote that you were asked during deposition
Yes,
in the UFC
and that
antitrust,
quote
and
is accurate
entity
now. That
you would
quote, please read it. Please read
okay,
it in a
the
minute, but
entity you would have
allow
total
me to
control.
introduce my own quote. Okay,
Okay,
that quote, that was at a hearing, right?
it was at a deposition. You were
Okay,
under oath and
that quote
deposition.
is as accurate now as it was when I gave it.
Yeah, okay. I'm
Okay.
not saying it's not. I just want to bring it into the conversation.
No,
I
you can
have
bring it in, but I'm
okay.
not going to contradict it now. I'm just
No,
going to say I don't particularly give a shit anymore.
this is
But go
more for
ahead.
the audience. This is more for the audience so they
Go
can
ahead, please,
understand where we're coming
please,
from.
please.
The entity you would have total control. The entity paying the fighter would be the one determining who the champion is, determining who the challenger would be, and basically would put it into a near total control over the fighter.
Yeah, good. You read
And
it. And by the way, what year did I say that in?
2007, August 29th, 2017.
Okay. I said that in 2017. I said that in the late 90s to McCain, in the mid 90s to McCain. I've said that consistently for decades, honestly. And there's a wonderful quote. I couldn't have said it any better than I said it at that deposition. and basically, you should clip that you reading my quote, and
Yeah.
that's how I feel about the new Ali Act and why I oppose it and why I don't think it should be called the Ali Act. That being said, it would be hypocritical of me as a guy that went into a Hall of Fame, that was able to invest in two baseball teams, had a highly successful career, went to 65 countries, had a wild life because of boxing, to sit there and to look at like this situation and say and be really upset about that right now. I'm not like we put ourselves here. We had an opportunity. I was part of a group of people that could have made things operate differently, and we tolerated a terrible system. And now that system is falling, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not I like TKO, whether or not I believe in Nick Khan and Dana and their ability to be wonderful overseers of boxing. Whether or not I'm calling Turkey His Excellency or not, he is well funded, and the Saudi government has limitless resources. They are. I mean, can they really do much worse than we did?
Probably not.
There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a couple more things, really, just to add something, then we can call this quits because I don't want to keep your, don't want to.
Right now, I'm not going anywhere, so you have to.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
One, I just brought that up not to say that we're gonna stop them, but I want the audience.
Excuse me 1 second, babe. Can you bring me a water if you don't mind, hon?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm getting them dry.
That's all right. I got you worked up here. That's good. I'm trying to get you in the aerial conditioning where you start, we start ranting back and forth.
Look, Ariel was a different story. Ariel and I have been talking about certain stuff Actually, the reason it started the way it did is because Ariel and I had a little debate offline, right?
Yeah.
After I read some quotes he had about that stuff. So we had gone back and forth a little bit. So he was prepared for me, and I was prepared for him. And it was like, okay, take the gloves off. Let's start the interview, right?
That was entertaining as heck. So
I don't have any axe to grind with you right now.
That's not yet. But anyway, I only brought that up because I think a lot of fans today and a lot of people in the media today do not realize the context that the Alley Act came out of, because it is a pro-competition bill. And they cite specifically the practice in the legislative history when they discuss the Ali Act, the practice
The Ali Act was a wonderfully noble piece of legislation. It really was. I mean, and John McCain was genuinely a boxing fan. John McCain, may he rest in peace, I considered a friend. We talked almost exclusively about boxing. He would call me regularly if he saw every bad decision that was on any form of televised fight. If McCain wasn't in session, McCain was watching the fight, and I would get a call afterwards bitching about the judges, the system, oversight of boxing, and that's how we became friendly. And when he decided there was a need for an Ali Act, I was one of the people he called, along with Pat English, you mentioned, and others back then. Yes, it was designed to be protective. It was designed to protect fighters economically, to stop the economic exploitation of athletes. That's what it was designed to do.
But that part we know, but the other part people ignore is it's create more. It's also supposed to create more competition, so people cannot engage in restraints of trade and prevent other people from taking part in it.
That's why the new act shouldn't be called the Ali Act. If you're going to call it the Ali Act, you should call it the Ali Act.
Well, the name floating around, the Ari Act, as a lot of people are calling it.
It really is the Ari Act. Yeah, and it was written by very smart people. And they're able to say this bullshit rhetoric. We're not removing the language of the first Ali Act. It's still out there. Of course it is, motherfuckers. You just made it all irrelevant.
Yeah, well, they made it so that you don't have to.
Irrelevant? You want it? I'll tell you why they made it irrelevant. Could you reread my quote? Seriously, reread the quote.
Reread the quote. I gotta find that quote.
Reread it, because it's exactly why I keep saying that it guts the first one. It makes it irrelevant. If you understand that one line, you understand that new Ali Act destroys the old Ali Act.
Well, let me read it for you again. Here's your quote. Me doing my best Lou DiBella impersonation on the stand. The entity, you would have total control. The entity paying the fighter would be the one determining who the champion is, determining who the challenger would be, and basically would put it into a, near total control over the fighter.
Yeah, I'm a smart motherfucker. That's a good quote.
Yes. Yeah. But the other part, but not only does the Ali Act create an exception where they can issue the titles themselves, the new bill also says if you're a UBO, you do not have to follow the other provisions in the Ali Act. You don't have to disclose. You don't have to, of course, contracts.
But here's the other thing, too. Go back to Kurt Emhoff and get him on, and do a half hour with Kurt. Let him explain to you, in the age of exclusive contracts with television, where they're giving promoters a pool of money. And that's how all the money has been spent by DAZN and ESPN or whatever. Eddie, here's your pool, here's your pool, here's your pool. And gross ups of the promoter. Like in Eddie's case, in the case of certain contracts, if the promoter is showing the fighter, well, I'm getting paid this for the fight, but they're also giving me a fee on the side of this for the fight, you're not showing that fee. If there's a pool of money, you're determining how you, as the promoter, splits the pool of money that you show the fighter. What are you attributing out of your pool of money? That's what you're showing as the revenue, or you're not showing it. There was no enforcement. Yes, it does remove all that, but that stuff wasn't working so well before.
No, I know. Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I say the compensation part, people go make a big deal about. To me, that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is the loss of private action and
the people making the ratings, the people determining the pay scale, the people giving out the belts, the people determining the mandatory, the people that are overseeing the action, the people that are overseeing the medical, the people that are overseeing the television. They're all the same people.
No. Okay, I want to give you a chance because you keep saying the current people in boxing led to this. What did you guys do wrong? What should have happened that would have not led us to this where we are today?
It was every man for himself. There was no business. There was no real sense of it. Was everybody trying to bleed the stone. It was Dana White's given 20 great quotes, and Dana and I don't hang out. Like he's not my buddy. right? Like I don't agree with him on a lot of shit. But you know what? When he said we handle boxing like a fire sale, when he said all they ever did was bleed the stone for the last buck, when he said they didn't reinvest in their own shit, when he said they didn't control their own product and they never took control of it, a lot of the criticisms he's made are spot on. And his desire to rid boxing of all the ratings organizations, there's a reason for it. It's not insane. It's rational, right?
But wouldn't if not Dana? I know why Dana White wants to get rid of the sanctioned organizations and put his own title in, because then they control everything, like your quote, which I won't read for the fourth time. But if you're a fan,
yeah, his like question: are you so convinced he won't do it better? Do you think there's more validity or less validity in the UFC rankings or the WBA, IBF, WBC, and WBO rankings?
I think they're both.
No, answer the question. Yes or no question.
They're both terrible in their own way.
No, I don't want to hear that. Stop being Ariel Hawani. No.
Yeah.
More validity. What are you more troubled by? 4 organizations that bozo the clowns dotted all over their ratings because they have different ratings? 4, not even 4 champions, world champions in each weight class. There could be 12. Usually there's 6 or 7.
That's terrible.
Hold on. You think that Dana's ratings could be worse than the present system? Yes or no?
They can be.
No, it's a yes or no.
Okay, yes, I think no. Well, what's the question again? Because I don't know which one I want to answer.
Do you believe that Dana's ratings would be less believable, less trustworthy? Do you believe there's any reason to believe they would be worse than the amalgamation of having to live with the WBA, the WBC, the IBF, and the WBO at the same time?
No, I don't. I don't believe they'd be worse.
Then that's why.
But let me add. But this is what kind of makes them worse. If you're someone like, let's say, Francis Ngannou, guess what? You do not get the opportunity to be rated by the UFC or fight for the title unless you sign a contract.
But okay, it sounds.
So that's
really
the leverage
bad.
right there. That's your quote.
Really bad. It sounds really bad when you put this in an athletic frame, right? But in any business, you see, one of the problems I had when I was the television executive at the end of my career, when I was a young guy, is I thought that I was too big for my bridges. I thought I was irreplaceable. I thought that I could get away with a lot of shit, because I was good at what I did. And everyone's replaceable. And any business you're in, if you don't want to fight for the maximum that the people that are amalgamating the revenue want to pay you, in other businesses, guess what? You got to go find your own way. Go make it yourself or go elsewhere. And if you can't go make it yourself or go elsewhere, you're likely to come back to the original people you were doing business with. See Conor McGregor. See John Jones. Do I have to keep going through examples?
Well, but that's it right there. Now we're back to the IBC of New York.
I'm not going to lose sleep for Conor McGregor and John Jones, who are already rich, when you're not going to lose sleep for the poor bastard getting paid $400 to fight a 4-round fight, or getting paid $800 to fight a 10-round fight. You know how egregious the minimums in the new Ali Act are, by the way, for fighters?
They're only 5% of fighters in the United States, according to athletic commissions, and back in 2019, got paid less than the amount that the new Ali Act would cover. So what's $150 wrong?
It's a completely illusory, insulting number.
Yes,
right.
But here's again,
an abomination to being called the Ali Act.
No, but
however, it's not causing me to lose sleep. By the way, I don't sleep well anyway, but the Ali Act ain't causing me to lose sleep.
But I don't get the talking point that look how many guys in boxing make less than 150 a round when MMA has basically the same percentage, and the same amount all the way up to the UFC level.
Not with MMA. What's the minimum for a televised UFC bout?
Again, you're talking about the top 3% of all fighters in the world.
No, it doesn't make it. No, you're not. I don't really believe that. No, I don't believe that.
Well, with that, because UFC is 90% of all the revenue. They have 90% of the top fighters.
Yeah.
You're basically talking about, when you talk about the UFC, you're only talking about
fighters that have full-time jobs and fight on a Friday night at a fucking bring your own booze backyard event aren't professional fighters. Okay,
well, that's the option. That's all there is in MMA. There's that.
But that's the option in regular. You think that's all? What you think?
Yes, but
do you understand?
But we should be comparing.
You understand? Excuse me. Do you understand that they're professional fighters who are televised in all their fights, but they're limited in a marketplace where fighters only fight 2-3 times a year. If they're getting 10 or 15,000, is way above the minimums of the Ali Act. Fight 3 times a year, make $30,000. Your trainer takes some, your manager takes some. You're on food stamps. You're
No,
on SNAP. There's
I
probably fighters right now not eating, bro.
no, I agree. Okay, but how many professional boxing matches are there in the world per
A
year?
gazillion.
Yes, and we're talking
By
about
the
there's
way, go to Africa. Most of the fighters aren't getting paid
yeah,
shit.
nothing, and there's 500 UFC fights per
Yeah, but
year,
you know,
300 in the United States.
that's my point. You can't compare. Yes, you're 100% right. All the wealth goes to to the fighters at the top. But here's the problem. I'm taking that top 3%. And when I say top 3%, I mean the ones that are making not getting paid great amounts. What do you say? 5% of the fighters are making more than in the alley. All but five are making. We're making.
No, only 5% in the United States were getting paid less than like $600 per bout. The rest, the
Oh,
median
you believe
boxer,
that? Wait, you believe that?
that's the reported payouts. That's
No,
all we
dude,
can work
that's
with.
complete bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, they're
No, that's
often they have to buy
complete horseshit.
tickets. Yeah.
There's fight. There are fighters fighting for free all the time. You know how many
So,
women fighters I know, by the way, president world champions that spent most of the last 4 years fighting for nothing? There are fighters fighting with no purses to build up their record to get an opportunity. There are managers paying their fighters living expenses, and the fighters aren't getting purses at all. There are other fighters that are working full time and they're getting paid next to nothing. Here's 20 tickets. If you sell them, you can keep the money.
but
That's complete bullshit. That's bullshit.
I believe that is probably bullshit. But here's the
Right.
problem: the bill wouldn't change the system already that says we're paying fighters more than that. It doesn't go in and say you have to guarantee the check actually gets the fighter. They're going to find a way to
Dude,
claw the
I'm
money
not
back.
losing sleep for Floyd Mayweather. I'm not losing sleep for Conor McGregor. I'm not losing sleep for Canelo Alvarez. I'm not losing sleep for those are the guys that are going to get hurt the most. And those are the guys, by the way,
Well,
those are the guys that'll also go to cocktail parties with Turkey and Dana
okay,
and whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It's the rich, the rich that are going to be most affected. That doesn't bother me.
that is true, but okay, but here's the two systems. And one, boxing on a big card, the main top two fights might get 6 million total, and the bottom 10 fights on the card might or 9 fights in the card might get 100,000 total. In the UFC, the bottom 8 or 9 fights in the card are getting 1 million, 10 times as much, but the top guys combined are getting 2 million.
Okay.
Well,
All right. So,
okay, so you're like, we
and
pay
by the
the
way,
bottom.
most of those guys, the fighters that have had alternatives to go elsewhere and do other things, some of them have taken those alternatives. Look, I think the UFC has a de facto monopoly. Is it a legal monopoly? No, clearly at the moment not. I mean, though there was a court case civilly that resulted in a lot of people getting paid, but um, there was no MMA business. There was no UFC before them. This wasn't the big segment of the combat sports world. Forget about the regular sports world, because now it's a pretty big segment of the regular sports world. They have $1 billion TV deal. So, I mean, they did some shit right, didn't they?
Well, yeah, they monopolized the sport.
Okay, well, you know what? Now there's a complete runway for them to try to do the same thing.
Yes.
Boxing.
Oh, I guess my argument, because I think both are terrible, my argument would be what we want is a UFC of sanctioning organizations, but not a UFC of promoters.
Not getting it.
Yes.
You're not getting it.
Well, I know we're not getting it. There's no motivation.
Most of the people that are being taken down right now in this, if this is a takeover, if there are people who are being taken down or are taken down, most of them deserve it.
But at the same time, then I
don't want to hear about the same time.
Okay.
By the way, I mean, some would make the argument, well, Lou, you're not trying to be a big time promoter anymore either. So they got you also. Well, you know what? But I see, you know what? I saw the trends coming. I saw us doing it to ourselves. I'm grateful to boxing for allowing me the opportunity to widen the breadth of the scope of my career. You know, it gave me the resources and the opportunity to do other things. I love boxing. I want to see it emerge from all this strong. I don't know how it's going to emerge. I said this on Hawani's show yesterday. I'll repeat it to you. I think there are certain people I look at. Eddie's young enough. Eddie's talented enough. Eddie's incredibly skilled as a P.T. Barnum, Don King kind of bombastic voice of boxing. But if Eddie thinks embracing the existing dying system without trying to change it and create something new is a way he can compete, he's wrong. You know, I have a lot of friends at Top Rank. A lot of people there are older than I am. Most, like, I mean, their matchmakers are older than I am. They're Bob is 94 years old. Todd is in Aspen. I think Todd's a smart guy, but I don't know how much Todd's a boxing guy. I don't know how much more of their blood and sweat and tears they're going to want to pour into boxing in the future. They have good fighters. They have an infrastructure. They have a library. They have a lot of resources. What becomes of Top Rank, we'll see. We'll find out in the next few years. Al's still alive. As long as Al's alive, Al's formidable. Al's a very bright guy. Al and I are not buddies anymore, but Al's a very smart man. And they renewed his deal at Amazon, is my understanding. He's gonna continue to be around in some form. PBC. Let's see if anyone emerges as a real alternative to TKO.
What do you think the chances are that TKO, with their leverage they have from their other monopolistic entities, the UFC, WWE, the whole entertainment industry that Ari runs, the money from the
Saudis. They would argue with the word monopolistic entities, but I know what you're saying. I'm just pointing out they would argue.
I think that they would argue, but I think when you have 90% of the market, you're de facto monopoly. There's you have market power.
Right. I think
they have market power.
I think had you just insert the word de facto. De facto monopolistic.
Yeah. So, but they have this leverage. I mean, you can see with the California Athletic Commission. Obviously, I think
they're all being laid out for them right now.
Yeah,
by the way, you heard what's his name, Andy Foster. You heard that. Did you watch that hearing? Hearings. Did you watch that?
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay, so you heard that, right? Yeah. What do you make of that? You think that's kosher?
No, I think it's obvious that because they make money off the big events, and the only ones doing big events are WWE and UFC right now, and possibly them in boxing. They're like, we have to get on their side, otherwise we might not get these big events coming to our state. That's what it struck me as.
I know. I thought it was remarkable that Andy was stumbling over his words when Helwani asked him if he wanted to be the Mark Ratner of
that too. Yes, yeah.
I thought that was remarkable. But
yeah, I'm sure everybody, every commissioner wants to be the next Mark Ratner. I'm sure that's something a lot of them are thinking about.
Absolutely, every state commissioner, 100%.
But we have all these other entities in boxing right now. But do you think with all that leverage, do you think it's possible that?
By the way, you're going over the hour 6 minutes I did with Helwani yesterday. So I'll answer.
Oh, you know what we can call it? You know what? I'll have one last question, then I'll let you go. I don't want to keep you here.
I'm going to give you one last question.
This last question, and this has to do with the MMA world. Because that current antitrust suit, do you think people should take into consideration how this bill could impact the lawsuits that the fighters have, that it could potentially damage? There's a Phil Davis v. Zuffa case right now where they cite the legislative history of the Ali Act and use that as...
Cite whatever legislative history you want.
No, but I'm saying if they pass that bill, it could potentially damage their
bill doesn't apply to MMA. You're right, only in the sense if you...
No, but they're using it as evidence of what monopolistic practices
you can make creative arguments about anything, right?
Yeah.
But the bill is a boxing bill. It's not an MMA bill. But I wouldn't have that concern.
No, I'm saying the people voting for the commission. Yes.
I just don't think there's anything you can do about that point.
No, but my point is, though, it could actually damage their suit, though, if they pass this new TKO. But you cannot cite the Ali Act as evidence of what's supposed to be prevented in boxing is causing monopoly if suddenly boxing's allowed to do these practices.
No, the practices remain monopolistic. Boxing's allowed to do them, not because they're not monopolistic. They're allowed to do them because some act got passed. You know, it's an act that governs boxing. It's not. Yes. I see your point. It may make certain arguments more difficult to advance because it exists. But I don't think that's any concern of anybody. I don't think that's why.
But by passing it, they could be costing these fighters hundreds of millions of dollars in potential. Well, they just got settled for $375 million.
And I don't believe there's going to be another slew of. I mean, wasn't this last suit? Didn't they have to create a pool? Weren't all UFC fighters been given the opportunity to jump into a pool?
Up to 2017. The new one covers everything from 2017 until now. So it's even a bigger pool.
I don't believe this new Ali Act is going to undo the law that resulted in the old settlement. I do not agree with that. with all due respect, I went to Harvard Law School.
Well, but I think you're missing the Davis case is not. There's two cases. Johnson covers the
No,
fighters.
you know more than I do about these cases. I
Yeah.
can't comment on the
Oh,
case.
no, yeah, we won't. I won't get.
You
But
know,
that was
my
it.
point is, you know something. If I read them, I might agree with you, but I haven't
Yeah.
read them, so I don't know the
Okay.
cases. You know
All
what I mean?
right. Well,
My
yes.
inclination is to say a law gutting an old boxing law can't really the extension of the new law negating the old one. I don't see how that could affect law that just it was just used in the settlement of the. I would have a hard time understanding that.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. I'm glad we got to go back and forth a little bit. I don't know what this help if this helps anybody watching it, if they were able to learn anything or not, but it was entertaining. I'll say that much.
I would think it would be. I would think it would be educational, but you have to understand something, bro. Most people aren't that smart anymore. Most people aren't particularly nuanced anymore. Most people don't care anymore. I mean, I'll remind you of something. We're sitting here talking about a sport in which Jake Paul, a 200-pound man, was going to fight a fight against the 150-pound man. And then that fight got canceled. And then people are wondering if he's going to fight a 250-pound man. So you're sitting here trying to wonder if people can understand like how laws interrelate, how laws are implemented and used in lawsuits involving monopoly and antitrust. With all due respect to it, it's a little bit.
Yeah, well, we are a niche audience here of a niche sport of
Yeah,
so a niche of a niche.
The problem is if you were playing this for a lot of the people that have governed boxing and that have worked in boxing for the last few decades, they wouldn't fucking understand it either. That's the problem.
Sadly, I think that's true. Well, on that depressing note, I'll let you go,
you
sir.
Know what?
Thank
the
you.
funny part, man, I'm not depressed right now about all this. No, I'm really not. I'm more bemused. I like the word. I'm embracing the word bemused.
Okay, I like that. I might have to steal that word. So, okay,
bemused,
do you have
a good word? I'm bemused by all of this right now.
All right.
I'm not exercised by it. I'm not losing sleep over it. I'm not depressed over it. I'm just bemused.
Okay. Do you have anything? Any fighters you want to bring up that you still have?
Kurt Scooby's going to fight out Azim. It's a very tough fight, but I think Kurt's an exciting kid. I have a kid fighting in Atlantic City tonight for anybody who's I have a kid named a Cuban Italian kid, Yoel Angeloni, who I think is a good prospect. But honestly, I'm down to the fighters I'm still working with. I think I can help, and there's not a lot of them. I could count them on two hands. I had 75 fighters a few years ago. I'm down to about 10 right now. I'm not really looking to promote a lot of shows or promote much. I want to hang out and watch what's going on. I want to be a voice in boxing, but I don't want to be part of this shit right now.
You wouldn't if ESPN called you tomorrow and said we want to put you in charge because we had no executive control, quality control over our product with Top Rank. We want to and we want you give you a budget and sign promoters and boxers. Would you take that deal if they called you?
No, not as a full-time job. If they called me and they said, would you give us 10, 20 hours a week as a consultant, and would you oversee certain aspects of things behind the scenes? Would you consult and try? I love the sport of boxing, man. I wouldn't waste my time talking to you or to Ariel or to anybody else. I mean, right now I'm working. Most of my working hours are building a ballpark and running baseball teams and
what a series.
But I gave 36 years of my life to boxing. Other than my dad and a few other people, my greatest hero on earth and my greatest hero in sports was Muhammad Ali. If it wasn't for boxing, no one would know who Lou DiBella was. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of love for the sport of boxing. So I want to see it thrive at some point in the future. But you know what? We have been an unsustainable business model. We have been we've had unsustainable governance with no credibility for way too long. And the collapse of the House of Cards was inevitable. And to some extent, I view it as like when something needs to hit rock bottom before, like when an addict needs to hit rock bottom before he or she'll get help. When a person has a crisis and needs to hit bottom before they know they need to do something about it. Well, we've hit bottom, and now we're going to see what happens, and it's going to be interesting.
On that, that's a good epilogue to the show. That's a good ending. So we'll leave it
know,
at
I
that.
thought so. That's why I did it.
Because it almost had it prepared. All right, and then
very nice talking to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm going to take.
Thank you for enduring the first two failed attempts to speak.
Oh yeah, thank you for finally coming on. It was worth the wait. Look at that.
All right, good talking
All right,
to you.
take care.
Bye-bye.